Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Thought Bubble podcast. My name is Laura Swanson, and I have my bachelor's and master's in social work, and I'm currently working as a therapist in New York City in an outpatient mental health clinic. And actually, I want to go back and I said, welcome to the Thought Bubble podcast. We went through a little rebranding moment. The Thought Bubble podcast is now the Social Work Bubble podcast. As is my Etsy shop, my Instagram, my Twitter, my blog, all those things are now the Social Work Bubble. Been in the process of LLCing some things, and the Thought Bubble was already taken in New York State. So we had some rebranding to do. Everything is now switched over to the Social Work Bubble. So if I catch myself saying the Thought Bubble, I apologize. It's a little bit of a habit, but just so you all know. So like I said earlier, my name is Laura Swanson, and I have my bachelor's and master's in social work. I'm currently working as a therapist in New York City in an outpatient mental health clinic. I know it's been a hot minute since I did a podcast or a blog post. These past few months have been difficult, so I've been doing my best to take care of my own mental health, and that for me meant accepting that I needed to take a break from work, and really just separating my worth from being a workaholic and from what I view as productivity. So today, like I said, the Thought Bubble podcast is now the Social Work Bubble podcast. We are going to be diving into all things boundaries with social work. Now, when we talk about boundaries in social work, it can mean many different things. Today, we're going to be talking about boundaries to prevent burnout and for self-care purposes. On another day, we'll talk more about boundaries with clients in regards to treatment, client relationships, what the NSAW Code of Ethics has to say about boundaries with clients, which is more talking about like how much information you share with clients, self-disclosure, things like that. That's going to be a topic for another day. Today, in the midst of so many things that are going on, I thought it was important to talk about boundaries. As we all know, I think we're all aware of this, social work is a very stressful job. Sprinkle on the pandemic, managing your own personal life, your own mental health, other responsibilities, volunteer work, maybe you're involved in your church or another organization. In working as a therapist from home, I've really come to understand the importance of a work-life balance and having strict boundaries to ensure this balance happens. Now, it's important to note here, when we say the word balance, everyone's work-life balance is very different. It doesn't have to be 50-50. It just has to be a balance that works for you. Some people need the 50-50 balance. My personal balance is typically one that leans more towards work, if I'm being honest. But it's a balance where I'm still functioning in a way that's healthy, where I feel good, where it's what works for me. But during the pandemic, I've come to realize that balance has actually been shifting more towards focusing and putting more attention to my personal life and my personal mental health and well-being. So what do boundaries look like, and how can we achieve this balance as a social worker? Let's first talk about our schedule. So social workers are notoriously overworked and underpaid. We have extremely high caseloads, depending on where you work, what agency you work, what that looks like. But the general theme is high caseloads, not enough pay, not enough time, and really high demands for productivity, for engagement with clients. Currently on my caseload, like I said earlier, I'm a therapist in an outpatient mental health clinic. I have about 35 clients, some of which I do weekly sessions twice a week with them, but majority we do once a week sessions for about 45 to 50 minutes. I also facilitate a weekly parent support group. Out of my caseload, I do have about a handful of clients that are high risk, meaning we've had to create safety plans to ensure protection from any risky suicidal or homicidal ideation or behavior. I'm also a fee-for-service therapist, and so that means I only get paid based on what clients I see. If I have a client scheduled and they cancel or they don't show up, I do not get paid for that time. Given all of these things, it can be very easy for me to overwhelm my schedule in an attempt to work with my clients if they do miss a session or if they do cancel last minute. Because I want to make sure my clients are seen, and I also want to get paid. I don't want to miss out on my money just because the client doesn't show up. So because of this, there are many days that I start work at 10 a.m. and I don't end until 8 o'clock p.m., not including the time I need to complete paperwork, collaborate with other professionals, other people in that client's life. And so it can be a lot. How can we grab a hold of a very complicated, always changing schedule? And I think ultimately it goes back to our theme today of boundaries. If your agency does have a cancellation policy, ensure you are implementing it. In doing so, this allows our clients to be more autonomous and to really flex that self-determination and motivation muscle. If your agency doesn't have this kind of policy, you could still advise your clients during their intake session or whatever the first time you meet with them of what the expectations are. And also, even introducing the need for a policy like that to your agency or to your supervisor. I personally, I work at a nonprofit mental health clinic for the local community. And so we don't really have a cancellation policy. We kind of say, all right, if you could let us know within 48 hours, right? But actually following that is difficult for the reason I said earlier is I'm also fee for service. And so if I need to reschedule a client, I will, because ultimately it's also not only about them being seen, but also because I need to eat, right? I need money. I need to have an income. And so I'll also be more likely to reschedule them and kind of mess up my own schedule just because of my own financial circumstances that I want to see them. I personally, something that I began to do, which my supervisor actually informed me of, and I think it's a great idea, is to make a contract with clients during kind of their intake session, or if you start to notice some concerns, that's all about their engagement and treatment. So it's basically a contract. You can review it together. We both sign it. So it's signed by the therapist, signed by the client. And in doing so, you both agree to be consistent in treatment. You both agree upon, discussed requirements, and you both agree to follow the cancellation and rescheduling policy. It doesn't mean the agency has a policy, but it's more client and therapist have agreed, okay, you know what, I will agree to call at least 48 hours in advance or at least 24 hours in advance. If I don't show up, or if it's, pretty last minute, then I won't be able to reschedule that session for that week. I'll have to wait till the next week at the normal time, something like that, whatever works for you. So you both sign that. If the client is having difficulty following this contract once you've set it, of course you want to take into consideration life circumstances, this and that, what's going on in the client's life, what are some main reasons that are resulting in low engagement and treatment. Of course, you want to look at it in an individual case-by-case basis, but you can always use that contract as a reference point to always go back to and remind them of the expectations. If it's something that continues to be a problem and you've discussed with them, life circumstances, there's not really any environmental or just daily life issues, they're just not engaged in treatment, you could consider writing them a warning notice, just letting them know, you've missed this many sessions on these days and times. I've reached out to you this number of times. If you miss one more session or if you miss 2 more sessions, you will unfortunately be discharged from treatment. Or something that I do in kind of warning letters or warning notices is I let them know, if you miss the next session or if you do not call to reschedule, you will be discharged from treatment. So that's also a plan too. Sometimes clients really can't make the next session, but if they always call and we just remain in contact with each other, then they will not be discharged, for me at least. In terms of client sessions, something that I'm trying to personally do better at is really limiting it to 8 sessions a day. If that. Part of this is practice. Honestly, it's just It's practicing being assertive, and it's being assertive with your clients, which can be difficult, especially when we do work with very vulnerable populations. And I do feel like many people have thrown in the towel and given up on my clients. And I want to be like their number one cheerleader and be like, you know what, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get them into therapy, whatever it takes to get them engaged. I think that's a great mindset to have. But you also can't be doing all the work either. You know, you're also a human being. You have many other people on your caseload. And so, yes, you can be your client's number one cheerleader, but that doesn't mean you're going to be the only one putting in effort to actually get them to their sessions. They are human beings. They have some level of autonomy and decision making. You can't force them to do anything. And at some point, you honestly just have to use your social work skills, right, to increase their motivation if they need to. Figure out their barriers to engaging in treatment. But ultimately, it's their choice. And if they choose not to show up, then it's about having that difficult conversation of potentially ending treatment or referring to another therapist, because that's also a possibility. They may not be connecting with you, which it's not a personal thing, but it's a conversation that needs to be had if you start to notice those things. So we do need to meet clients where they are and be empathetic individuals, but also understanding our time is valuable. Our energy is valuable. And we also can't be bending and every time a client says to. We need a break, and we also have standards for what treatment looks like. In creating a work-life balance, especially when working from home, I feel like these are many things I've learned in remote work. The lines between work and life can very easily blur. If you're able to have a specific area for work, really pretend you're at the office. I did not get used to I did get used to being able to get groceries quickly, like clean my apartment if I need to, cook during the day, go for a nice walk in my neighborhood. It's been delightful. However, I kind of fall into these things, and it's made it really difficult to get other work done, because it's not like I'm treating my day with those boundaries of a work day. So then at the end of the day, I'm kind of left with all this paperwork or this and that to do at like 9 and 10 o'clock at night. If I treated this like it was work time in the office, if I'm at the office, I can't go run to the grocery store real quick. I have to commute 45 minutes to get to work. And so I can't really do those things. So that time in between sessions where maybe at home, I'd write a blog post or, mop the kitchen real quick. Instead of doing that, I'm actually in the office getting a lot of other work done, making sure I'm being productive there. So if I treat this work like I'm actually in the office, I'm more productive, and I do my best to get all my work done in the allotted office hour time. I'm also used to having a 45-minute commute home to read and to leave my work at work. Working at home, this means logging out of my work email, shutting off my work phone notifications, and changing into more comfortable clothes. So because all of those things, we need like a ritual, right? To get your body and your mind to transition back home. Especially as we continue doing remote work, if you're continuing to work remotely, even just part-time or whatever, it's important that you give yourself kind of that transition period. So like I said, my transition period was the subway home, my 45 commute home. That was the time for me to really leave things at the door and bring my full attention home. But in working from home, we don't really get that. We don't get that commute. We don't get that time to kind of wind down and be ready when we walk in through the door. And so, that transition could look like whatever. It could look like going for a walk, around your neighborhood, exercising, going to the gym. It could look like reading, taking a few deep breaths, doing some stretches, whatever you need it to be. I think either way, I do like to wear work clothes when I'm working from home. I did get into this habit of just like wearing leggings and a comfortable shirt, like a turtleneck. I've been wearing some really cozy sweaters. But if I need to look more professional for some reason, I put a blazer over top of it. But I'm not gonna lie, I've had moments too when I work with kids and I just wear a hoodie, which is not ideal. My workplace is like professional dress. It's not business casual or anything. We're supposed to dress professionally. But there's also like, I don't know, some sessions I have at like 7 o'clock at night. It's with a kid, and I'm just like, all right, they don't care. But I've learned I'm more productive when I dress in the work clothes, even if it's just part way. I still wear cozy pants most of the time. But as long as, maybe I need to do my blazer, or I do my hair and I do my makeup, put on some nice jewelry, it gets me going. And so at the end of the day, even if I'm still working from home, I change out of my clothes, just like I do when I get home from the office, change into something more comfortable. Another thing to note is when I started working from home, I created a Google Voice account. So my client phone calls and texts and everything would go directly to my personal cell phone, but my clients wouldn't actually have like my real phone number. So this can be really nice to create that boundary there, but everything still comes directly to my phone. So they don't have my actual phone number, but everything is still coming to my phone. And something that I learned very quickly is people really take advantage of this. A lot. So at the end of the day, early mornings, weekends, I go onto my notifications thing on my Google Voice app, and I turn off all the notifications. The only notifications I get are from my friends and family on other messaging apps that I talk to them on. Google Voice is the only app I use that's strictly for work. And so it makes it really easy. I can just turn the notifications off. This was a very difficult thing for me to do and a very difficult place for me to get to. But ultimately, I had to make that decision for my own patience, for my own mental well-being, to have that boundary, especially when I do work with people that are more high risk, that have borderline personality disorder, or that can become very attached to me if I'm not the one to instill those boundaries. Because at the end of the day, we're not a friend, we're not family, we're a therapist, we're a social worker. We have a life outside of this client, and we have every right to be able to walk away from it when we can, to care for ourselves, to care for our own lives, and to live the way that we need to outside of work. This was, like I said, a very difficult place for me to come to because I do have a handful of high-risk clients, and working from home, they really felt like they could reach me at all hours. I had clients calling me at like 10 o'clock at night. I had one client accidentally butt dial me at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was just, it's a lot, it's like early in the morning, late at night. And working from home, usually when I'm in the office, because I work with kids, I work a lot like after school hours. And so I usually work from, ideally it'd be 12 to 8. So 12 p.m. until 8 p.m. So it's still an 8-hour workday. Recently, it's honestly been more like from 10 a.m. until 8 p.m. A few days of the week. But generally speaking, most of my hours are during the evening. This is very difficult for people when we work from home because it's kind of just like, okay, well, you're there in the morning, you're there in the afternoon, you're there in the evening. Clients really feel like they can just reach you at all hours. And so even with high-risk clients, even if you have concerns, that's why we create a safety plan. I spent all this time and energy creating a safety plan that works for my clients, but then they were still calling me. Ultimately, if they're in a significant crisis where there is a safety concern, they shouldn't be calling me anyways because I'm not going to be able to do anything. That's a situation where they have to call the mobile crisis team, or maybe they need to talk to a crisis counselor. And I do crisis counseling as a therapist. If a client calls me and there's a lot going on and they need to do some crisis counseling, that's fine. I do that. But when it's things like out of office hours on the weekends, that's not my job. That's not my place. And I've really come to this place for my own self, and I've learned it the hard way of just being exhausted and really feeling tired and not really feeling like I've had a break during the weekend. I've really come to the place of being very strict with those boundaries and truly shutting off those notifications, letting clients know, just so you know, if you need anything this week, you can give me a call, but I'm not going to answer if it's past 8 o'clock. I'm not going to answer if it's on the weekends, and I'm not going to answer if it's before 10 o'clock in the morning. So really just setting those guidelines, because like I said, clients are autonomous, independent individuals, unless they're children, but their parents are there, right? So, I mean, they can make decisions. They're independent. If they feel like there's a safety concern, they have the resources and supports to access further help. As their therapist or as their social worker they see once a week, that's not really your role anyways. We have other supports and other agencies in our communities for a reason, right? They offer those services for a purpose. So with that being said, speaking of shutting off my phone notifications on the weekend, let's talk about what weekends look like with boundaries. It can be really easy, especially if you let your schedule overwhelm you, to leave notes and paperwork to the last minute and even until the weekend. I've been guilty of this, and if I'm being perfectly honest, I was very recently guilty of this. Still a work in progress. Do yourself a future favor and try your best to get all your paperwork done the same day. The same day. When I say the same day, I mean that's stressful. That's my agency's requirement because of insurance and billing. I mean, we have to get it done by the end of the workday. I actually technically think it's within 48 hours, but they kind of tell us, within the workday, just to make sure everything is all set with billing that day. Which, at first I was just like, oh, that's ridiculous. I mean, that same day, I work until 8 o'clock at night. I'm not going to get any of my notes done until 9. I'm not going to make it home until 10. It's ridiculous. But now that I kind of see this in practice and I see my own personal bad habits of procrastination shining through sometimes, I realize those rules are there for a reason. It's to hold you accountable, and ultimately it's helpful. If I'm being completely honest, and I swallow my pride a little bit and I accept my flaws as a human being, it's helpful to have those workplace rules. It's not a rule I set for myself, it's an agency requirement, and so then it just motivates me to actually be productive, do my best to get my work done at the end of the day. And then it's honestly, I can head home and I don't have anything on my mind. Or if I'm working from home, I don't have to go to bed thinking about this and this and this that I have to get done. This can honestly, it can be very difficult to do. It can be crazy difficult, especially if crises happen during the day. Sessions just go awry. You got a call from this other case manager, you got a call from maybe an inpatient unit, you got a call from a child protection worker, you got a call from a concerned family member, you got someone canceling a session, needing to reschedule, someone needs this treatment plan, someone needs this paperwork that they need you to complete, someone needs this, someone needs a treatment letter, someone needs a letter about, treatment progress for court the next day. It's just like 10 million things can happen all at once. That's what keeps social work exciting, right? But what can also be the reason why it's so difficult to get all of our stuff done in one day is because I don't think it's actually really possible. But in terms of paperwork, I do think it's important to kind of set that rule for yourself. Do the best that you can. It's not going to be perfect all the time. That's unrealistic. Ultimately, though, it is a daily habit, and it really allows for long-term success and lower stress levels by keeping paperwork at a minimal level. If you can't do this, give yourself a weekly schedule for paperwork time. Within my work calendar, I really like to use block scheduling to really block out chunks of time to make client phone calls, to connect with other professionals, to complete paperwork. If I don't do this, before I know it, the week is over and I still have all these things I need to do because I never put it in my calendar and I never really blocked out that time for it. If we're not intentional with our time, if we're not intentional with where our time goes, our schedule can really slip away from us because, like I said, crises come up, 10 million things come up. So we need to make sure that we're being intentional with our time and with our schedule. And maybe that could be scheduling in, using some block scheduling to make sure we're getting those other things done. My last point that I want to discuss today is being able to say no. This is a boundary of not accepting further responsibility. This is also one that's been difficult for me to instill in my personal life, in my daily professional life. But I've really made drastic improvements because I've seen the consequences but I've also seen the positive impacts of it. Part of saying no, I think part of it is knowing your worth as a social worker. You may be asked to take on another client. You may be asked to facilitate a group or review this or that. You may be asked to do 10 different things, right? And I think sometimes we forget that we don't have to say yes. We don't. It's important to really evaluate what you're doing right now and determine if it would even be effective for you to take on more. Because it goes back to that saying, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. Ultimately, we're serving very vulnerable populations that are high risk, that are in need of genuine, effective support. If we are so busy doing this and that, and we can't put our time into an effective manner for our clients, like, what's the point? Then we're not even doing our work well. Part of saying no is also saying no after you've accepted something. Sometimes we may not understand the time a task can consume or the true essence of a role until we're actually in it. And so being assertive not only with yourself, but with your supervisor, that maybe you need to decline, or maybe, this role needs to look different for you. You need to, allow a different clinician or a different social worker to take on another responsibility, or, maybe someone else needs to step up. It doesn't mean you aren't a good social worker. It doesn't mean that you don't care about a certain project or a certain client, and it has absolutely no bearing on your capabilities. It simply means that your mental health matters, and at the end of the day, there will be another social worker who can probably do it. You can be replaced. And I don't mean to say that in a harsh way. I think we all like to think that we're making a difference and that we're great and no one can replace us social workers, and that's true. But it's also, in terms of, thinking about capitalism and just the workplace, you can be replaced, but your time and energy can't be. So it's important that you're wise and you're cautious with how you spend that time and how you spend that energy, especially in the field of social work. I think many people think that because we're in this field, we have 10 million things to do, we got to do it all, right? There's so many people in need. I think it's because of that, because of the intensity of our job, we need to be even more careful and more critical of how we're spending our time and our energy. We can see that when we allow one boundary to slip, the others may be very quick to follow suit. As you've heard 10 million times before, these are very difficult times. Unprecedented, right? Finding a new norm. Social workers are often the unspoken professionals dealing with all of these events. Results of the pandemic, social justice, the Black Lives Matter movement, preparing for the upcoming election, doing macro-level advocacy work, on top of our day-to-day work. We can become easily drained if we don't make ourselves a priority. Practice what you say to your clients. Your impact will be lessened if you are not at your best, so be gentle with yourself and know your limits. We got into this work because we want to change lives, right? We want to have a positive impact. We can't do that effectively if we're drained, if we burn out, if we lose our will to do this job well. We lose the purpose of why we even entered the field in the first place. Taking care of yourself, especially now, is a priority. Thank you all so much for listening to the Social Work Bubble podcast today. If you want to add to this conversation at all, please share your comments wherever you're listening on, or head on over to my Twitter, my Instagram at socialworkbub for worksheets and resources, different therapy activities for social workers and therapists. Check out my Etsy shop at etsy.com/shop/the social work bubble. Thank you all so much for listening. Again, like, share, comment, do what you need to do, and I will see you next time. Thank you.